One of my friends put that into Word, and I think the word count on that reading was something like 950 words, which is about half the length of my sermon. So we're right on. Now, by this point, most of you know me, I think, pretty well. But one thing you need to know about me is that I love movies. That's it. Movies. If you remember nothing else, remember that. When I moved down here, I brought my clothes and my books, but I also had to bring my movies, because what would I do with all my free time? That's true. That's true. But still, on my days off, I do get to watch the occasional movie. So like clockwork, you can usually find me at the Northeast Mall Cinema on Thursday mornings before 10 o'clock. Because if you buy early bird matinee tickets, they're only about $4 or $5. That's right. That's right. And over there is where I've made my best friend in Texas. I don't know his name, but I know that he takes tickets on Thursday mornings at the cinema. And he knows that I come in because every time I go in, he looks to see what movie I'm going to, and he'll give me a heads up on how it was. I saw this last night. It was really good. You know. This week, I went to see Beauty and the Beast, because as a kid who grew up in the 90s, Beauty and the Beast is definitively the greatest movie of all time. That's it. End of argument. It just is. And as I was walking in to this movie, my buddy said to me, I cried when I saw this. That's right. Like I said, it was a challenge to me. Now, I did not cry when I saw Beauty and the Beast. I did, however, sing all the songs out loud. But the nice thing about going to movies at 10 in the morning is that no one is there to hear me. So, I was thinking about movies this week, and in general, great stories, because great stories, ones that you really remember, live in your heart, right? They just do. They capture you in some way. I don't have the gift of being able to pull chapter and verse Bible verses, and maybe some of you do, but for those of you who don't, I bet all of you can name at least your favorite Bible story. A children's Bible growing up, you know all the stories. It starts, in the beginning, that's a good story. Noah's a good story. Joseph and his brothers, good story and a good musical. Double on that. The Exodus, or perhaps you like the character pieces, Esther, Job, Ruth, Daniel, also good. At the very least, you know the New Testament stories. Christmas and Easter. That's right. Now, in the Gospel of John, John tells lots of stories. In fact, John tells long stories. In the other Gospels, a lot of these messages that we get in these longer narratives in John are boiled down into parables. Parables are fantastic to preach on because they're short, to the point, and have an angle. Now, long stories like this, that's a little bit harder to do. Mostly because there's too much to focus on. This is 41 verses long, and I could have probably gotten 7 or 8 different sermons out of it. So, instead of doing a parable, instead of perhaps preaching on just one of those things, I'm going to preach on all of them. And we're going to go through this like you might do in a junior high English class. We're going to diagram a story. Don't worry, there's no test. There's no test. But there's pretty essential parts of every story. The beginning, the setting that introduces the problem, and then there's a rising action that builds at some point to a conflict, which then continues and builds and builds and builds to the climax, right? The epic point where it tips and finally spirals back down the mountain to the falling action, and then there's a resolution. I just took English for the last time a senior year in high school, so I think that's how it goes. But that's close enough. So I want to start at the beginning, right? A very good place to start as well. Jesus has been thrown out of the temple. Why, you ask? Because Jesus was doing what Jesus does best, argue with the Pharisees. So he got thrown out. And in being thrown out, he stumbles across a man born blind in the street. Here's why I want to stop. First, sermonette number 1. Can anyone tell me the difference between a man born blind and a blind man? In the Bible, they are very different. Because a person born blind is a punishment. That's why the Pharisees ask, right? Who sinned, the parents or the child? Blindness or disability of any kind was a punishment. One of the Psalms, 58, says, the wicked go astray in the womb. I read a blog post by an ELCA pastor in Iowa this week who was born with only one arm. And she wrote about her experience in the church growing up, and in particular her parents' experience, who have told her countless stories about people in their church who asked them what it is that they did that caused their daughter to be born with one arm. Now, I can't speak about this from personal experience. I don't even have anyone in my family who was born blind or with a disability. But I just can't wrap my head around this one. It's so challenging. But we can't deny that there are stigmas about disability in the world, whether or not we believe they're a punishment from God. But I find that challenging to a New Testament theology that says nothing can separate us from the love of God. For even when we were dead in sin, Jesus loved us. And Jesus calms my fears a little bit and says, this is not a punishment. This is so my good works, God's good works, can be shown through him. And we could go on for 15 minutes more, but that's only verse 3. See what I'm talking about? That's verse 3. Because we enter now the kind of happening, the big event that sets the rest of the story in motion, and that's Jesus healing the man. Creates mud, rubs it on his eyes, tells him to go wash in the pool. Perhaps you remember the story of Naaman washing himself of leprosy. And it's here where we could do sermonette number 2. We could do a whole theology of baptism. How we are washed clean, given a new slate in the waters, freed from sin. But we don't have time for that. And bonus, on Wednesday night, our confirmation preacher will be preaching on baptism. So why steal her thunder? Let's instead move on. Because now we get into the meat. We get into about 25 verses of questions. Law and order, New Testament. Back and forth. First it's the neighbors. Then it's the Pharisees. Then it's the Jews. Then it's the Pharisees again. Then it's the parents. Then it's the blind man again. All these questions and questions and questions, asking the same thing over and over, trying to trip him up, trying to confuse him, hoping maybe he'll give the wrong answer. Or perhaps we could focus on his poor parents, who are afraid to answer and defend him, because if they say something that the Pharisees don't like, they too will get thrown out in the street like their son. So they say, no, ask him. So we could focus on what it means to doubt and question, or have uneasy feelings in our faith. At the very least, we could talk about what it's like to be Christians in a world where Christ isn't literally present. We can't go to Jesus at his office hours and say, will you back me up, please? These guys are asking me a bunch of questions. I don't know if you noticed, but after verse 8, Jesus goes away. Disappears. He's absent from verses 8 to 35. One commentary I read this week said that that is the longest absence of Jesus in any of the Gospels. Now, I would still argue that Jesus is a main character, but I think it causes us to ask the question, what does it mean for us to see Christ in a world where we can't literally see Christ? There's a thinker. But we're not at the end yet, so we can't focus on that. Because we have to then get to the climax, right? To that pinnacle point. And this is where Jesus reemerges. Exit, enter. Enter stage left. Jesus is back. And says to the man who was blind, I am the Son of Man. The bread of life, the shepherd, the lamb, whichever one you like best. I am he. I am the light of the world. This huge revelation, that is the point this whole story builds up to. And even after that, the questions don't go away. Even in the resolution, there's still questions. I was thinking about this week because I honestly could not decide which way I wanted to go with this. Really, there's too much good stuff to do. So I wrote in my head 4 or 5 different sermons, different angles. And this is what I figured out. No matter which path you take, you always get to the same ending. And that's true for any great story, any great movie. No matter how we engage with it, no matter how we deal with it, question it, challenge it, the ending is always the same. And any story is only ever as good as its ending. Spoiler alert, in Beauty and the Beast, Belle and the Beast get together. That's the happily ever after. That's what the whole movie is building towards. It's all set up. For us, this whole narrative, all of these 40-some-odd verses, are a build-up to Jesus' revelation as the Son of Man. That's what we're waiting for in Lent. Because you have to remember that this story, that it just took 10 or so minutes to diagram, is part of the bigger story. The larger Easter narrative that will end up there. And that really is the greatest ending of all, because it's a twist ending. The Romans think that they will finally extinguish the light of Christ. They're finally going to put it out, and they're going to do it with the cross. But joke's on them, because not only is Jesus going to rise from the dead, but the cross is going to be the thing that the light of the world shines through. That's a good old-fashioned happy ending. I want to end with a quote from author Frederick Buechner, who wrote a book called The Gospel as a Fairy Tale. It's really short, it's really fantastic. But he says this: the gospel is the meeting of the darkness and the light, and it's the final victory of the light. That is the fairy tale of the gospel, with, of course, one crucial difference from all other fairy tales, which is that the claim made for it is true, and that it not only happened once upon a time, but has kept happening ever since, and is happening still. That's where we're living right now, in the ever after part, in a constant state of amazing grace. And it's all because of that goofy, old, rugged cross, that old-timey hymn that we just love to sing. And that final victory happened once upon a time, to be sure, but happened throughout the past and happens today in this place when we proclaim it. That is our happy ending. And thank God for that.